Hey folks, I'm Mark Ryan. This is Super Review, and today we're going to take a first look at the Sennheiser IE300. So this is Sennheiser's latest IEM. I think it just showed up on Amazon this week, and it's exciting for a couple of reasons, and the least of which is not that was an odd sentence, that it's not every day or even every year that Sennheiser comes out with a new IEM. In fact, the last Sennheiser IEM that I reviewed was the IE40 Pro, which was like back in 2019. And that was a Pro model. The IE300 here is an audiophile tuned model, which is kind of how Sennheiser divvies them up on their website at least. And this is also going to come in at sort of an audiophile price, if that's a real thing. These things are 300 bucks, so not cheap. For that 300 bucks, you get a single dynamic driver earphone that honestly has a pretty cool look, and I'm interested to see how this thing, well, looks in the flesh, but also how it fits, because I'm into this look. But for 300 bucks, that's like Huda 600 hunjo money. So fairly high expectations, and in this price range, I think in the IEM space, my favorite is still the Moondrop Blessing 2. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and just open up this box, see what we get inside, do a little fit test, but this is not gonna be a full review. This is my first time unboxing this thing and seeing it in person, so I've got no real impressions to give you. That said, I do have my measurement rig set up here, so we can go ahead and, produce a little frequency response graph, start to get an idea of what this thing might sound like. But if you want the full review, subscribe to the channel and ding the bell, and then YouTube will let you know when I'm live with the review. For now, let's start by taking a look at the IE300. Oh, that was actually a pretty decent spin. It's been a while since I did a spin, but that's not bad. All right, so we can do a quick tour of this box because there are some specs on here that might be of interest to you. We'll start over here on the side. Punch in here, a little bit of technical datum. Oh, that's a little spoiler about what's inside the box. We'll skip that for now. But frequency response, 6 hertz to 20,000 hertz, not shocking. SPL of 120 dB at VRMS. These ratings right here are just kind of, they're using different standards all the time. It's hard to make too much sense of that. But that does sound like it's a fairly sensitive IEM, and then total harmonic distortion of less than 0.08%, which again, I don't know how much to make of that stuff. But down here, we just got some bullet points that are a review of the headphone on the box of the headphone. I don't know that I trust that review, but I guess we'll just go ahead and crack this box open and see what's inside. Hey folks, if you're watching now live and you have any questions about the IE300, leave them in the chat. We'll have a little conversation at the end of this video, like I have been doing recently. So yeah, it's one of those hard to shake boxes. You know those boxes, right? It's being difficult. Probably because I haven't taken off all the tape. So with good reason. That's my bad. That one's not Sennheiser's bad. All right, take a look at, there is the box. You've got your IE300s. Looking pretty handsome. Let's pull this out. Okay, got a little case. I imagine some sort of paperwork stuffed underneath here. Ooh, flavor packet, interesting. Quite a bit of paperwork. I'm not going to go through this in too much detail, but let's see. You get a quick start guide, which doesn't look too intimidating. Set that aside over here. You get a very intimidating instruction manual that's going to fold out in a way that will embarrass me, so I'm not going to do that right now. Instead, we'll just focus on, well, we can take those out. Let's see what's inside this little carrying case. This is actually a pretty nice little carrying case. It's a good size. Nice little kind of puck-sized, relatively thin, zippered with a nice Sennheiser logo on the top. Let's see, okay. Put that aside for now. And this is an interesting little paper bag. Looks like it's got our set of tips, and maybe a toothbrush. Oh no, it's got an earwax pick, which is even better than a toothbrush. Set this stuff aside. And the ear tips, these are kind of interesting because these look very similar to the ear tips that came with the IE40 Pro, although a little bit different. It's just interesting that Sennheiser does this thing that I don't know if this is coming across on camera, but they basically put sort of like a grill on the ear tips. And I don't know if that is sort of an additional tuning layer, and there is actually foam inside of this ear tip as well. So I don't know if that's like an additional tuning layer that they are doing, or if that's just to prevent gunk from dropping inside of it, but they do have that. And they've also got the foam tips, which also have that same sort of grill up front, and I'm gonna guess they've got some foam inside as well, which is curious. There are 2 different sizes of foam tips, which isn't always the case. Actually, 3 different sizes of foam tips. Small foam tips, that's a rarity. But it looks like 3 sizes of tips. My guess is that the mediums are already pre-installed, and here you've got smalls and larges. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what is inside this box. I don't think there's going to be anything else back here. Just a big block of foam for you foam collectors out there. Here we've got the IE300 already pre-attached to its cable and ready to enjoy looking at this thing. All right, so I don't know if this is coming across on camera, but this is a very, very tiny bud, and I'm a big fan of that. Let me just, for comparison, pull in the Moondrop Blessing 2, which is on the large side of buds, but you can see just the size difference here between the Moondrop Blessing 2 and the IE300. That's one of the things I'm actually pretty excited about, is just having a really comfortable fit. We'll see in a bit if it actually pays off, but there you go. You've got your IEMs. They are on an MMCX cable. This cable does have these sort of memory wires, which I'm frankly not the biggest fan of these things, but at least on the IE40 Pro, which also had memory wire cables, they aren't the worst ones. These are some of the better memory wire cables. There are some that are just super ratty and nasty. These ones seem to be about the same as the ones in the IE40 Pro, although maybe a little bit nicer down here. All right, let's take a look at this cable, which is on the thin side, not fancy, kind of silicone wrapped. You've got a Y split down here with a chin slider of sorts. And that actually appears to be a pretty functional chin slider, which is nice. But this cable, you can kind of tell, has already got quite a bit of memory baked into it. We'll see how much of that works itself out with time, but I gotta say, on first impression, this is not the nicest cable, not the nicest behaving cable. But I am pretty excited about the shape of these buds. Let's go ahead and give it a real quick fit test before I throw it under the measurement rig. Let's go ahead and punch in close so you can see what the IE300 looks like. And I can say that sound isolation is pretty solid. Maybe about average, maybe slightly better than average, frankly. And just the initial impression is that comfort is quite nice on this thing. This thing is as small as it looks. Now, I'm not gonna give it a listening test, but we will throw it up on the frequency response measuring rig so we can see what it looks like. And I will warn you folks that YouTube is not updating my live chat. So if you've got questions, I might have to figure out another way to get to those. But for now, we can at least measure this bad boy. So, and this is the rig that I use for measuring. This is basically just a little microphone built inside of here, and this thing is supposed to simulate the inside of your ear. I don't know how exactly it does that, but I trust them. Connect this to the computer and then throw in the left channel, fit it into the coupler, Position it so that it is steady inside of there. And then, I'll go over here to my measuring program called RU. Now, and you can see here, this is actually just before this video, I started doing just some test frequency response graphs. And here I actually have a frequency response graph of the Sennheiser IE40 Pro. We can pull that up for comparisons later, but for now, let's start with the IE300. And there you have it. There is your frequency response of the IE300. Let's pull up that IE400 Pro for comparison, and you can see a big difference between these two. And that difference is going to be down here in the bass region. The IE300, the one that we've just unboxed, is a far bassier IEM than the IE40 Pro. But it's interesting to see this, this area here around 1K, between 1K and 3K. Really between 1K and 4K, honestly, is where, with most IEMs, you're gonna see a more significant rise, which is meant to simulate the sort of gain that your outer ear will generally sort of use to amplify sound. And the IE40 Pro, let's go back to just showing that one, has very, very little ear gain, which is interesting. Here, I'll show you the Moondrop Blessing too for comparison, and you can see how much more there is in this upper mid-range lift. The IE40 Pro, not very much ear gain, and if we go back to the IE300, also surprisingly very, very little ear gain, which is interesting. I have a feeling this is going to be kind of this should be a very warm sounding earphone based on this frequency response. Not just a lot of bass, but not having that the vocals being pushed forward. I think vocals are going to sound a little bit on the recessed end, and then you see this little, I guess little is maybe an understatement. You get this pretty significant treble rise over here to the right, and that's, I would anticipate, going to be a fairly, I don't know, sharp, almost V-shaped sounding IEM, which is interesting for an audiophile tuned earphone. But yeah, that is about as much as I'm going to be able to tell you about this earphone without listening to it. So I'm going to now spend the next couple of weeks at least living with this IEM and comparing it to some other IEMs in this price range, around 300 bucks, as you recall, and I'll come back and I'll do a full review. If you want to be around for that review, please subscribe to the channel, ding the bell, etc. And if you like this video, please hit the like button down below. I'll see you on the next super review. And until then, have a good evening or something. Cheers. All right, folks, if you are here live now, I'm trying to figure out how to get live chat to show up. We'll see if this is actually working, or if I'm perhaps talking to nobody. All right, we do have live chat over here. I don't know what YouTube's up to, but I'm glad that at least we can have a little conversation here. Let me catch up. All right, catching up with the live chat. DNT Arc, what's up? Domego, hey, welcome back again. War Samir, howdy, howdy. Poop, howdy, howdy. Domego, I notice you. Mr. MX Tech, hey, nice to see you again. Hola. Joshua Sasbo saying you love the transition from logo to product. Okay, I'm glad I can satisfy. And Alex Sage, yes, that was a Dank Pods reference. I hope I did it. I hope I did it justice. I'm sure I didn't. I don't have the Australian accent and the charm, but did my best. And DNT Arc, I see you're saying, dang, the price tag comes with a little bit of expectations, and I agree. That's going to be a challenge for this IEM. I mean, it's obviously not impossible for a $300 IEM to live up to those expectations. The Moondrop Blessing 2, I think, does it, and there are definitely some other IEMs that sound pretty good in that price range, but can this little guy do it? I'm pretty excited about it, honestly. I have high expectations. High expectations and high hopes just because I love, let's go back to the table. I love the way this thing looks. So tiny, so itty bitty, very comfortable. It's very lightweight. It's definitely, you know, a full plastic shell. Not heavy, there's no metal here, but it is on the nicer side in terms of fit. Alex Stage, thanks for catching the tape, the missing tape. Dab saying you wish your IEMs came with a toothbrush. If you spend, a lot of the times if you spend like $200, $300 on your IEMs, you'll get them with a toothbrush. It doesn't last that long, but you'll get a free toothbrush. Is there Apocalypse? I see you saying the ear tips are wild. They are interesting. I'm gonna try listening to the IEM with the stock ear tips initially, but there's a good chance I'll end up putting something else on it. You know what, actually though, honestly, if we go back to that frequency response graph, let's go back to this. Nope, there we go. This treble right here, I might be happy that there is a grill and a block of foam inside that ear tip. If I remove that, that could get even crazier. Joshua Sasbo asking, where are these made? Interesting. Let's see if we can find out by taking a look at the box. Made in China. I don't know, can you see that? No, that's very blurry, and I don't think, all right, we'll do this awkward like. Designed in Germany, made in China. Umar, I see you're asking, is this sleeping IEM potential? I think absolutely. This is one of the most, let's see if we can do that again. This is one of the most flush fitting IEMs I've ever put in my ear. Like, it's so flush fitting that like, I'm probably gonna have to use larger ear tips than I usually do because this thing, you know, is fitting so deep in my ear and it's not even really creating a seal at this point. It was earlier, but I think, there we go, that's a better. But yeah, I'm probably gonna have to go with a larger ear tip, which is gonna push it out a little bit more, but this is definitely one of the most flush fitting IEMs I've ever seen. This is weird. I'm bouncing between so many windows because YouTube. What is YouTube up to? Huron, you're saying boo MMCX. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a strong preference between MMCX and 2-pin. I feel like I've talked about this before. I'm not disappointed that this thing is MMCX. I'm more disappointed that this cable has the bendy hooks. I don't need that kind of flexibility. Just preform them for me. Is Linus still using his IE80 or whatever? I don't know. And yeah, I see folks responding to the frequency response graph with wow much bass. He's a bassy guy. Well, at least on a frequency response graph. We'll see if that carries through to listening. Still catching up with live chat. Appreciate you hanging in there. What's up, Metal? Carlson is asking, will the rise centered around 8 to 9K hertz result in sibilance? And the answer to that question is sort of TBD. Let me pull this graph up again. It's TBD. It's interesting. I haven't necessarily found a very strong correlation between frequency response and treble. My experience is that usually if you've got a lot of treble between 6K and 8K, it can be an issue. But I haven't really narrowed it down to like a 5K peak equals sibilance or a 6K peak equals sibilance. It's not quite that consistent. But based on this, you know what, this frequency response graph is actually reminding me of the Sennheiser Momentum 2 true wireless IEMs. I think a very similar frequency response. In fact, that IEM, I found that the treble was a little bit on the fatiguing side, but I did not find it to be sibilant. So we'll see if the IA300 is like that at all, or if it's completely different. They do have some language on their website about a resonator and something to do with treble, and I feel like, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what it sounds like when I listen. And for those that aren't already in the Discord server, I do have a Discord server with a link in the description that you can join, and I've got a room dedicated to the Sennheiser IE300. I will be dropping in some early impressions there as I listen to it. The Ho saying, Sennheiser is selling their consumer audio business. Not sure if I trust them anymore. They haven't had a stellar IEM since the IE800. Yeah, I saw that news too, that Sennheiser, I guess I didn't read it. I just read the headlines, so like a good, well-informed human on the internet, I just read the headlines, so I didn't actually dig into the language that Sennheiser was using, which might tell a little bit more specifically about what they're thinking, but it sounds like they're interested in focusing more on the professional stuff and getting a little bit out of the consumery stuff, which I kind of read as, you know, the Bluetooth audio category, and probably the gamer stuff and stuff like that too. Will that mean that they're going to get out of IE300 territory? I don't know. I hope not. I hope they're still making audiophile stuff. Certainly hope they're still making the HD 600. I almost said that wrong. I almost said HD 600. Metal 571 is asking, what's your favorite non-foam third-party tip brand? And I would say two answers. So one is kind of Final E-Type. They're one of my favorite tips just because of the quality of the rubber. That's right. I feel like Final, they make the best materials for tips. Unfortunately, they're a little bit narrow bore and they can have the effect of attenuating treble, which is usually not what I'm looking for. Maybe I'll try it on these though, actually, now that I think about it. So because of that, I actually end up not using the Final E-Type tips as much as I would like to. They work pretty well on some IEMs, but for a lot of them, like, I don't need that treble attenuation. So what I end up using is the ASLA Sedna tips, which is what I've got here on my Moondrop Blessing 2. These are Sedna EarFit Lights, and then this is the short version. They've got just all kinds of different versions. I initially started with just the regular Sednas, but I actually recommend the Sedna Lights because the rubber is just grippier. The rubber on the regular Sednas is a little bit on the stiff and kind of plasticky side, but I think that the Sedna Lights are a pretty good balance. Now, it is a very wide bore. It is not going to attenuate treble. In fact, it might increase the treble presence of your IEM, but that's my general preference. Basically, those two, right? If an IEM has too much treble presence, I might throw on a Final E-Type ear tip, and if I want a little bit more air to it, I'll throw on the Sednas. DNTRC with an interesting comment. The bass looks fun. If the details are there, then this might be sort of pocket HD 5.8Xs. Yeah, that could be interesting. The 5.8X is a headphone, if you're not familiar with it, available on drop.com. It is a bassy headphone, bassy open back headphone with, I think, upper mid-range. It's definitely not as muted as these look in a frequency response graph, but the upper mid-range on the 5.8X doesn't have the same forwardness that you would get on something like the Sennheiser HD 600. So yeah, I potentially could see some overlap there. Although I think the bass on the IE300 did seem to be a lot more focused in the sub-bass region, whereas on the 5.8X, like a lot of open back headphones, it's a little bit more mid-bassy. In fact, there aren't a lot of headphones, frankly, that have a bass curve the way that IEMs can do it. And part of it's going to be down to measuring, but I think also just IEMs probably have some advantage in creating sub-bass. At least in the frequency response. There are other aspects of sub-bass that full-size headphones still do better. Ryan Snyder asking, how's the fit compared to bigger IEMs like the Dusk? I've never been able to get an IEM to fit in just my left ear, but these look interesting. I think I would have I have a hard time imagining that this is not going to fit anyone very well. Like, this is just such a small IEM with a very universal fit. The only potential concern I have for myself is that I need to throw in a larger ear tip. But I'll do that after this. Nandu, I think you asked about the Grado GW100 V2 last time, and I gave you the same. I gave you an answer. My answer is not any different. Recode asking or saying that the B2 graph that I have looks like a Viento. Yeah, the Viento and the Blessing 2 do have pretty similar frequency responses. You can see that on Crinical's graphing tool as well. I think based on his graph, his Blessing 2 might have less bass than the Viento. The Viento might look actually a little bit closer to the frequency response, especially in the bass region of the Dusk. Fun fact, I actually am borrowing a Viento from fellow IEM reviewer Precog Vision. He loaned me his personal Viento that I've got in the living room out there. And I gotta say, it sounds really, really nice. I am not the biggest fan of the fit of that IEM, and it has by far the worst cable I've ever had on an IEM, but the sound is phenomenal. I would put a different cable on it if it were mine. Sean, how's it going? Nice to see you in chat. Josh Lee is saying you can't seem to find a retailer to buy this thing. I'm guessing you're not inside the US because this is available on Amazon.com right now, link in the description. I saw a question about some Sony. Nergal is asking me, have I reviewed the Sony MDR1AM2? No, I don't think I've even heard of that. Metal, yeah, you're pointing out this IEM, the IE300, has 0 ear gain. Sennheiser's frequency response target for IEMs makes no sense to me. It's interesting. It's interesting. I don't quite get it either, but I'm not going to judge this thing based just on its frequency response. But I do admit it's a little awkward. The Momentum True Wireless 2 that I reviewed about a year ago. Again, I think it has a very similar frequency response to this based on what I remember. They actually ended up updating the app and adding a feature called, what did they call it? It was like high fidelity sound or something like that. Basically, it was like their version of an EQ for audiophiles. I actually do like it better. It reduces the bass quite a bit, and I feel like it also did add a little bit of ear gain to it, but now that I think about it, I forget exactly what it did. And I think it lowered the treble as well. It basically just kind of flattened out the frequency response. In Metal, you followed up a little bit more detail saying Jude. So Jude is the proprietor at Headfi, if you're not familiar. Jude talked with Sennheiser about this, and apparently they're looking for a partner, not selling it off entirely. Okay, so referring to the Sennheiser consumer business topic that we were talking about a second ago. Red Rich, you love the wallpaper behind me. Thank you. This is IKEA. I actually have been thinking about replacing it though with a large map or something. Would that look weird? Would you miss it? Rio Zuma, I see you're asking, you say you have the IE40 Pro, you like them, and you're wondering how do these compare? Well, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you because I have not yet heard this. Just unboxed it, graphed it, kind of have an idea of what it might sound like, but I don't like to judge an IEM by its frequency response. At least not until after I've listened to it, and then I'll judge it for its frequency response. All right, I'm trying real hard with this chat. YouTube, you're doing me dirty. Rhetoric, I see you're also asking about the Sedna lights on the Blessing 2. You said they were hard to get on. Do the short ones fit better? I feel like they're about the same. Yeah, it's not the super easiest to get on, but I guess it's not also that hard. Part of the reason I put Sednas on that earphone in particular was that I found that the stock ear tips kind of stretched out a little bit because the nozzle on the Blessing 2 is fairly wide, and it's also kind of tapered, like it doesn't have a notch built into it to hold the ear tip on. So because of that, the tight fitting of the Sedna ear tips was actually a bonus for me. But it should fit on and not be a problem once you get it on. Simon Lee, hi from London, hi from San Francisco-ish. And yeah, Metal, I see you commenting on the Viento, saying it supposedly has both great tuning and great detail. I agree. Although, so I'm kind of curious. I believe, wait, have you heard the Moondrop Blessing 2 and or the Dusk? I'm projecting based on what I know about your frequency response preferences, and it might be a little bit forward for you. But it is, in my opinion, it's excellent tuning. It's a very neutral, forward, borderline bright tune with great detail, really surprisingly good soundstage and imaging as well. That was the thing that stood out above the Blessing 2, was the imaging on that thing. Treble is a little bit on the spicy side. I know Precog, he's again the reviewer that loaned it to me, he was saying for him it's a pretty sibilant earphone, and for me I would say it's like, so, I mean it's not great with sibilance, but it's not the worst for me, but that probably will depend on how well it fits you. And it's not a great fit, but it is available in custom. Poop, I see you're saying what map? I want a map of the world, like Earth, the world that we live on. I don't know, I've always been kind of obsessed with maps. Ever since I was young, I remember when I first moved away from home and I was living up in Seattle, and Google Maps had come out around that time, and it was just this like wonder to me that I could use this map and like understand my surroundings, and yeah, I love maps. I love traveling on like doing like motorcycle trips and using maps to find my way around, and I don't know, there's something comforting about maps. My Life Matter saying if Samsung picks up Sennheiser, it will be another AKG death. Do we feel like AKG is dead now though? I mean, they just came out with the K371, which is not my favorite headphone, but as far as closed back budget headphones, like I can't think of anything that's frankly anywhere near as good. So I don't know. I don't think AKG is dead. Yujo Baka, appreciate the super chat. Oh, okay, Metal. So you said you just did a mini review of the Dusk. I thought you retired. You just did a mini review of the Dusk. Yeah, I think Max told me the upper mids are more towards ER4 in that level than a Dusk. So, I don't know. Into it, I see you're goading Metal to come out of retirement. And Iontron asking motorcycle trips, the Tile connection. Does Tile ride motorcycles? I know he tours the world now in a van. I haven't heard him talk about motorcycles though. That's interesting. That would be the only connection I had to Tile. I please do not compare me to him. He is the godfather of audio reviews, I suppose. All right, Metal, you said that your mini review is on Twitter. I'm gonna check it out. In fact, I'll go ahead and check it out right now. This is gonna be the end of this video. Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate the chat. Sorry for the awkwardness in the middle. I figured it out-ish. I mean, YouTube's broken, but we figured it out. So if you haven't already, please hit the like button down below this video. It just helps other people find the channel, and you're probably already subscribed to the channel, but just in case, subscribe to the channel, ding the bell. Scott Pledger, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that. Coming in under the wire, but yeah, if I'm gonna be spending at least a week, probably about 2 weeks living with this IEM, and I'll compare it to the Blessing. I'll compare it probably to the Momentums because frequency response looks similar, and anything else that you think this thing should be compared to, let me know. The best places to let me know are gonna be on Instagram. I also have a link in the description down below to Instagram, or on Discord. Discord's probably even better. But that is gonna be the end of this video. I will see you on the next super review. Have a good night, folks.